Hey, this is Ethan and Leela with my cards, and we're doing a little video today. So the other day, we're in the kitchen and we're talking about stuff. We're making a meal, and you brought up a topic.
Yeah, well, I was like, would you consider the fool on the hill to be the hermit? We were listening to that song and inspiration, and I'm like, wow, yeah, would you
Yeah, we've
consider
been
that?
kind of been on the Beatles kick. Every once in a while, you gotta listen to some Beatles. You have to.
Gotta.
Yeah, and I thought that was a good question, especially since it has "fool" in the title,
Hmm.
right? So we go, okay, let's not talk about it too much. Let's do a little bit of research independently. Let's think about what we want to say, and let's
Which of
bring it
course
to
means
the.
I did no research.
Well, so
So,
what was it? What was it that made you come up with that?
um, well, for one, the picture, the video, um, it has the solitary man standing on the hill and what the topic of the music is. And he's kind of like it was kind of a juxtaposition of the fool on the precipice or walking on alone, and the hermit being alone but standing on a higher ground looking down at things. So I just kind of like started thinking about it and how that evolution happens. And what do I tell clients when they pull that card, one of those two cards, and things like that, what I see. So yeah, that's kind of.
Yeah, and so what we're talking about here. Yeah, well, okay, so that's a little glimpse into the reader's mind, right? Where when you do a lot of reading, you sort of do you see things in pictures, you sense things from what's being said. You can translate from a picture to words as much as words to a picture as well.
Mhm.
It crosses through the territory of like linguistics, history, knowledge of culture, and artistic expression, visual,
And
audio,
feeling
everything.
feeling
Yeah.
too, like what is the temperature of the card? What is it? Yeah, what are you feeling? Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the kind of question that comes up in our households because we work with cards together and stuff, right? So immediately, even if you like, so I did a little bit more than Wikipedia, but if you go to Wikipedia for the "Fool on the Hill" song, it'll tell you that at the time Paul McCartney was hanging out with this Fool Collective, is what they called themselves, and they were basically a troupe of artists. It's 1966, 1967, and they're being hippies and dancing around with tambourines and different instruments and stuff. And
Fantastic clothing, fantastic clothing.
yeah, and it
Yes.
was kind of cool how this tied into like a whole thing that the Beatles were doing, and there's a whole story about it. We're not Beatles aficionados by any means, but my mom loves the Beatles. My dad loves the Stones, and that was their difference. In fact, the other day, I sent a text to my dad thanking him for introducing me to Sabbath when Ozzy passed, and that was
Yeah.
something, you know. So my mom, big John Lennon fan, big Beatles fan. Well, this is really mostly a Paul McCartney story, right?
It's true.
Yeah. So the Fool Collective, they did like a lot of the clothing for the Magical Mystery Tour era of the Beatles when they went all colorful and psychedelic, and it was a big change for them, right? And
Hmm.
these are the cats that did the clothing and designing for that stuff. They had just lost their manager, so they're going through an evolutionary change within the band. And Paul was stepping up as somebody who wanted to do more of the management and act a little bit more solo. So the Fool in the Hill song, writing it independently, recording it the way he wanted it to be recorded and stuff, was a pretty big act of individuating himself from the group, you know?
Yeah. I mean, didn't he get backlash for that too? Like, isn't that kind of, or like when he started doing the act of doing that stuff, stepping up, he started getting backlash. Like, so it's kind of in there. It's like the little bit of the envy or the not understanding and the things that are in the song, that he was starting to feel. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know.
Innocence, the innocence of maybe thinking that things were going to go great and having these big visions, but
Gosh, oh my gosh, just like you said right now, just look at those clothes, those fabulous clothes, well, or lack of at some point. But yeah, right. We're talking about that. That's, yeah.
yeah. Okay, well, maybe we can switch gears a little bit here.
Yeah.
So it's this led me to think, and I wanted to make sure I had my dates correct and stuff, but what deck were they using, right? Okay. So the Fool Collective, you can look them up on YouTube. There are things that show the Apple Boutique and all the things that happened during that era. The Apple Boutique was a clothing store that they
Where everybody
did
was hot and high.
drinking apple juice
Yeah.
and but what deck when the Fool Collective say that they chose the name of their outfit based on the tarot card, what tarot deck are they referring to, right?
Hmm.
And so this is 1967, really is when they, fully formed. And right about that time is when Paul and John and the rest of them were mixing it up with these folks. Heavily responsible, I think, for the whole, even transformative sound of the band that they went into psychedelia at that point officially, right? Big
Hmm.
change.
Hmm.
Um, so what deck was it, right? So by 1967, the Rider Waite, the first publications of it had happened from like 1910 to almost 1940. It mostly sold to people that were in the occult circles. It wasn't widely distributed, and it stopped because of the wars. And then
Hmm.
it finally got picked up again by Kapler, like 1970. So this is before it
Pre.
was, yeah, reprinted
Hmm.
again. When people refer to when they say the tarot and they only mean the Rider Waite, they're not they don't know about the connection of all the decks that preceded it, and most of them are like Italian and French nature. Um, I even went as far as checking out Toth again, the Toth deck, because it's a possibility. Well, the story on the Toth deck is that the paintings had been done, but Crowley passed away. Uh, Harris passed away, the artist. Um, the paintings went to a collector. Then finally, also around 1970, I took down some notes for this. Anyways,
That's pretty good. Anyways, you're prepared.
yeah, Toth timeline. So Lady Frida Harris, yeah, was the artist. So 69, the first edition of the Toth Tarot deck is printed in full color format by a publisher in Hong Kong. And then Gerald York inherited the paintings in 1977. And then they did the green box in 1978, which is actually a higher res version of it. So yeah, you couldn't get that prior to 1969.
So even yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Hmm.
So this leaves, okay, so then the next question is, um, do people from the Netherlands, what deck are they familiar with? Would they be exposed to, the Marseille? And the resounding answer is yes. There's very much likely if they're using a tarot deck, what they'd be exposed to because it was readily available there. So yeah, that's without knowing for sure, it would be this image,
Hmm.
something like this, that would be the one that they're responding to. And their clothing looked just like this. This is totally the look of the era that they're, you know, that kind of Art Nouveau resurgence, as well as like a Renaissance resurgence as well.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Part of your suggestions, and when you've done this in the past, like when we are early on studying and stuff, is the fool's journey, right? And so we pulled out a few cards to look, and the truth is like they all have very specific things. Okay, so some of the clothing that they had capes, right, and stuff, right,
Hmm.
and then yeah, the colorful stuff, right, like the magician stuff, like hats, fancy hats and stuff. Um, People being kind of royal and wise, and the even looking a little militarist, like the Sergeant Peppers, right?
Yeah,
Like that, right? A little militaristic and stuff like that. So um, the imagery fits with that theory, I think. Right? Yeah.
yeah. And you can, the same can be said for the Rider Waite as well. Um, but what's interesting
Yeah.
is that, like, if we talk about the movements of art movements and stuff, what's interesting is that, like, the Art Nouveau that was happening around Pamela Coleman Smith's time, when she was generating the images for this, there was totally a resurgence that was coming back around that same time. You can say are things like the reemergence of the tarot, and my gosh, the biggest band on earth, also saying things that are connected to the tarot and taking on this
Oh,
imagery. The art and life feed off of each other, and that I would say that if those events hadn't happened, perhaps the resurgence wouldn't have occurred the same way, or
mm, hmm, hmm, hmm.
yeah. So then people like you and I were born in the early 70s, and these things have already happened.
They can't tell by the gray.
Yeah, I mean, come on. So we're children of the 80s and 90s, and we're influenced by the 70s, which is just after this kind of recovering from that post Summer of Love and all that kind of stuff. It's some of the reason why people like you and I got conceived, people of our
Hmm.
generation, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But we're not of that time. We didn't live through it like our parents did, you know? And um, so I know for me, my experience, you've always been in love with the clothing and stuff, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. Music and clothing all my life. Yep. I've
And
always
then,
been like kind of bohemian looking, hanging out with a bunch of sessions and rockers and even goths in high school and stuff. But I was like always wearing kind of, yeah, the colorful clothes, the interesting, flowy skirts and trippy tops and yeah, the
yeah,
bohemian look.
yeah. And for as much as I wanted to, in my own life, assert kind of, I didn't want to connect too much with the old stuffy, I
Hey,
was
you had
heavily,
the coolest pair of shorts that is so patchwork that it belongs right in that era as well, Because
oh,
remember
yeah.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think I made a deal with one of our good friends that was from the Pacific Northwest, and that was like, oh no, Humboldt. He was from Humboldt.
Humble.
Yeah, and he had legitimate hippie. Well, I had my hippie eras too, but there were
Yes.
also times where I was kind of rejecting it because we're of our own time and we wanted to make our own. Yeah, I
Mhm.
was into metal and stuff like that. But all these things are influence each other, and they come. So when we come back around, and like maybe some of the stories that I would have ignored, um, when we go back and we investigate them now because we're interested in the cards, And we learn about things like the Apple Boutique, how it was like, it was almost like a modern day um, venture. Like you could see a thing like that happening
Oh
now on a
yeah.
big,
Oh yeah. It
right?
was really cool.
Really cool. A big old mural on the wall and stuff done by the Fool Collective. And they're trying to be very modern about the whole thing. And, but um, they did it as a tax so that they wouldn't get so hit so hard with their taxes, and they spent a lot of money on it. And then basically, since they were doing the hippie thing and they weren't enforcing the security restrictions, people were starting to just lift the items and take them without paying for them. They
Yeah.
couldn't control that, and they learned a lesson on um, structure, I guess, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, yep. They had to learn, yeah, about the manipulation. And okay, so the first actual, so the fool is zero, right? And then the magician is one, right? So they had to figure out, they had to learn about the manipulation of things. They had to make a magic trick to try to escape the tax burden that they had. Um,
Yeah,
the whole bit, right? And
yeah.
then people stealing things, taking things, just making things disappear on them.
They couldn't keep the books straight. They had, it was all about the books and the, yeah. I mean, my gosh, yeah. We were thinking like, wow, we could really go through the first 10 majors of the deck, and I don't think the fool became zero until like the Rider Waite. It was just unnumbered.
It's just numbered. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah,
but
you're correct.
there is the glyph of the sun right here, and that kind of looks
Mm.
like a zero.
Mm.
It's been depicted as barbels too, I think, like a
Yeah, I was gonna
like a
say
bell or
mine is
something.
like a barbel, like part of his hat,
Oh yeah, like a
right?
bell.
Yeah, yeah. So interesting.
Yeah, these little differences. Well, okay, so the structure, right? Very Saturnian, right? And
Mhm.
like yeah, associated with Kronos, Saturn, and Virgo to
Ah.
some, right?
Hmm.
Well, so to give you a little idea of the Fool Collective, right? There's this album that's out there, um, where they're doing their tambourines and they're dancing around and they've got all these hippie songs and stuff, right? But there's this um, song where they're emulating a morning when the sun is rising, right? And they say, "It is dark, but also not. It is still, but also moving. A leaf shivers, kissed by the first breath of a newborn day. A thousand dewdrops reflect the first spark, and a cascade of color across the meadows. A bird chirps softly to the breeze, accompanied by an orchestra of trees. The liver laughs. No, the river laughs and plays, bathed by the first rays of morning."
Glorious, glorious, glorious.
But it's
Okay.
beautiful, right? They love,
Hmm.
love, right?
Hmm.
Um, and people fell in love with that. It was a wonderful remaking for the Beatles, but a hard time, right? They stopped touring. These are considered this like studio era of their career. And ultimately, Paul wanting to go more solo and have a heavier hand in the management is the undoing of the Beatles in time. It takes a couple more records for that eventually to happen, but it does,
Hmm.
and um, so the Austin Powers aesthetic is all over this. It makes me want to see that first one again because that's so hilarious. Um, the Fool on the Hill lyrics, right? So, day after day, alone on a hill, the man with the foolish grin is keeping perfectly still. But nobody wants to know him. They can see that he's just a fool, and he never gives an answer. But the fool on the hill sees the sun going down, and the eyes in his head see the world spinning round, right?
Hmm.
And, he's standing there with his lamp doing just that,
Hmm.
right? And the next card is the wheel,
Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
right? And at the
Yeah.
end of Fool on the Hill, um, the fool on the hill sees the sun going down, eyes in his head see the world spinning round. Oh, round, round, round and
Mhm.
round, round, round,
Keeps
round, right?
going. Hmm.
Yeah,
And the archetype of the hermit does not like a lot of rotation, a lot of change. Really, there he's really concerned with stable progress movement of, things being slow. A lot of round and round and round and round is like it's a lot, but you have to go through that before you get that, right? Like there's a lot of changes you have to the cycles you get to see, and if you're slow enough you get to actually see them. So if you can stand on the hill and your eyes can see the world revolving and changing, then that means they're slow enough to experience it and see it.
yeah. Austin Coppock, when he describes Virgo, I was very sort of surprised. It was fresh and new to me to hear him describing Virgo as this sign that sits apart from the activity of things so that they can watch and understand them.
Oh, so that's why they associate the hermit with
I
Virgo.
think he
I didn't know
I
that.
Yeah, I think that's why I think he brought that into his astrology because of the association with the tarot, I think.
Hmm.
Right? Um so you can kind of go down a total rabbit hole with this. Um I certainly did. There was one thing that I wanted to mention. I could say it without the notes. I was trying to look for it. There's like an authorized biography, um, and of Paul, and he tells a story of how one of the members of the Full Collective would read for him, and he was reluctant to do it because he never wanted the death card.
Mm.
But she was a good-looking gal. I think he, took to her a little bit. He said, and so he would entertain it, and the fool card would come up a lot, and he was like, "Oh, no, that's." And she reassured him that, and she leaned into the idea of it being about innocence and that it's a good thing and stuff, right? And I think there's a quality of the that's sort of Paul brings that to the band. He does seem the more naive, even if George is younger, right?
Yeah, their personality. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So it fits, and I think, and I listen to that story and I hear her as a reader delivering that particular part of the message to him about the fool to
Hmm.
help him see that that's the case because he might not see it in himself so much because he wanted to be the big manager guy, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Yeah.
how many of his darn songs are about like he's this young dude. They were like 25, 27 years old when this stuff's going down with this
Crazy.
particular era of
I
time.
know.
And but in the meantime, he's writing, when I'm 65, all these songs about like, your mother would know, and or
Yeah. 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 Totally.
even Full on the Hill.
Hmm.
Sorry,
Yeah, I
go
was
ahead.
gonna say, well, yeah, even songs about, like his grandma, the just all, yeah, yeah, very older thinking songs, I guess, more mature songs, like, or just
Sort of
predisposing.
projecting from this place of youth and innocence, and
Yeah.
his way of understanding and depicting things in song is very much he wants to write about this.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then
That's,
the reincarnation of things, how the old becomes the new, and it does go around. And then, you catch on to one of these spokes and ride it through your rotation. And that's where you get your experience, right? And that when that's this story has a clear cycle because the Beatles did end, and so did the the hippie 60s. It went straight into the 70s and 80s, which are a totally different deal,
hmm.
right?
Yeah. 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 And then also with that wheel, yeah, that's those cycles and stuff. And I love how these cards depict like a king-like figure, totally decked out in like the big old shoulder pad, like the Sergeant Pepper's looking type thing. So at the moment they're just standing up, they're at the top, they're at the top, but they're also kind of on their way down too. There's stuff, yeah, that cycle. And you can't always be on top, right? You can't always be at the height of your career, the height of your uh,
Yeah.
age, the height of, yeah, it's a change. So, and change isn't really easy. There's always the person that's on their way up is very eager. And the person that's on their way down is like, oh, sad face, because they're gonna get crushed under that wheel. Oh, sad face. But what in my deck here, it really looks like the one coming down has his eye to the horizon, like, okay, so what if I jumped off? Like, what if I like
Yeah.
what else can I see? What if I get off that wheel? Then what? Because
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
The one going up is pretty intent on the ascent. The
hmm.
one that's at the top thinks they've got it made. And the one coming
Hmm.
down is definitely looking off of the wheel. Yeah, in the Dodal, same thing.
Hmm.
That character
Yeah,
is, oops.
yep,
Yep, there
you
we
got
go.
it. Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Um, so how quickly that was happening? Sergeant Pepper's is 67, Magical Mystery Tour is 67. The White Album is 68, Yellow Submarine is 69.
That was just bam, 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 bam. I mean,
Yeah. And by 70, they're done. They did Abbey Road and then Let It Be. That was it.
wow. So much happened. That's so
Yeah.
much. There's so much. Wow.
So the full collective, um, they ended up disbanding as well around the same time, right? So also some of the things that they did was like Cream, the bass and the guitars that were all painted, right? That they painted those. The mural on the Apple Boutique, they painted that. That very distinct, very primary color looking thing.
Hmm.
One of the people from the collective had 5 kids and they named them each a color.
Of course they did.
Okay. Stuff like that, right? So one terror related thing, in addition. So there were two of them that were married. Okay, so one Postuma, Simon Dawa Postuma, right? Postuma.
Posthuma. I know. What a name.
Yeah.
Posthuma.
And I'm like,
Like,
well, so what does that name mean, Postuma? And it's literally that. It's like if the father dies and the child survives, you were born to a father that never knew you. You are a Postuma. Okay, so that comes from their heritage in the Netherlands.
oh.
Yeah. And
Hmm.
I'm because I'm like, that's not a real name. That's a clever, awesome, important name, especially for the type of transcendental meditation and
That's like the emperor, right? Like you come from this place, ancestry and stuff, right? Sorry, I didn't mean to
yeah,
interrupt your thought too much there. That
yeah,
was just
being cut short by a
being.
Saturnian.
Hmm.
There's these things. You start to see these things. Okay, so then he and one of the other. they got married. They had a band together. Simon Margique, right? They had a hit that's called "I Saw You," right? Simon in Margique, and some of the songs are kind of interesting. They're kind of funny. I like one of them. There's almost like a twin flame song on that
There,
record.
yeah, soul, twin souls or something it's
Twin Souls,
called.
they call it. Yeah. And then they made a are they the ones who made the other boutique? Okay, so a couple of them went to LA. They opened up another shop and they were doing clothes for like Tower of Power and some of the folks going into the 70s era.
Mm,
You've got disco, you've got funk, right? So you notice the change from the primary colors that are like the Renaissance into sparkly, like almost
disco ball
yeah,
inspired.
right. Yeah, a little
Yeah.
a shift, and they were part of that shift, and
Mhm.
they called their thing the Chariot,
Ah,
right? So it
yeah.
was Barry Finch and Josh Leaguer. Uh, and after The Fool, they opened up a boutique in Los Angeles called the Chariot.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so there's your
Which would, yeah, I was gonna say, which would make more sense, right? You got the shiny stuff, the the scallops on top almost look like stage lights, and um,
hmm
you've got the little horses dancing down below. And it's like, okay, yeah,
and
we're
they're going
showing up.
forward. They're
Yeah,
going
we're moving
forward,
forward. Hmm.
and that entire era, you got the hippies turn into the yuppies, right? If they do. Now there's some that don't, right? But this is where they start by being anti. This is a counterculture movement. They're against capitalism. They push against it hard. It comes to a peak, by 1969, and then it's beautiful, but it's over because you can't. It's difficult to sustain it in the way that they approached it. Not that the idea. I'm good with peace and love. I think we should be capable of it, but we
Yeah.
showed that really, by and large, all of society was not prepared for that and didn't know how to do it. And so, if you're going to survive, you go into more business, which you see Paul do with his wings and other things. We saw the way John handled it. He continued the revolution and um, he continued a more artistic and sit-in kind of
Hmm.
way
For
of
a
doing
while.
it. Yeah, Vietnam War
Mm-hmm.
is in the mix. People still have emotions about these things, but gas prices are bad, and we got to get from here to there, and the Rust Belt and all that stuff, right? So, uh,
The wheel goes round and round. We've been,
yeah,
yes. For some reason, we can't, as a people, humans, we can't seem to get off that wheel. Gosh, it would be
yeah,
nice if we could. That would be,
samsara.
yeah, no, seriously.
Yeah. So,
Uh,
what
Very
did you have
interesting.
anything else?
I was just gonna briefly like to tie it back into some imagery with the Fool card and the Hermit card, right? And the reason why actually it made sense, like that song title and the song lyrics are really perfect for that. The Fool on the Hill, which has made me ask you, well, isn't that just the Hermit? Isn't that the Hermit? Right? And so some of the imagery, we talk about a lot of the style that you and I kind of share in, but we're different. But so if we look at the imagery here, he's got his stick, he's got his bag, like he's somewhat prepared, but he's not quite prepared because his stuff's hanging out, and he's got, he's bringing baggage with him, things are coming with him, right? So, anyways, he thinks he's prepared. He's got just enough there. He knows enough to travel lightly, right? And so he's going forward on this journey, right? And eventually, through that journey, through all the things that we see, and he ends up here as, the hermit. And now that stick the bag that was lightly for him to carry now turns into the lamp of his. He still carries it, but now it lights his way rather than being on his back as a weight that he's holding or carrying around with him. Now it's something that lights his way, and he still keeps the stick. His walking stick is still with him so that he can poke around at things right on his way. He's got to test out the water still. So the fool was wise enough to bring his walking stick with him as well as the baggage that he needed to carry to move forward. But when he gets here to the hermit, then he knows how to use his tools properly, and like it's a mature place to be, but it's also a solitary place to be. It's much slower and not so erratic in energy, right?
Mhm.
But so with that lamp, he's bringing the knowledge with him of what it was like to be the hermit as he
Oh, to
did
be
his
the fool?
journey to.
What it was like
I
to
mean,
be the
I mean,
fool?
what it was like to be the fool. Sorry, yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah,
To the hermit, right? Yeah. So,
for sure.
um, that's how they relate to me a lot. And so that's kind of my, I don't know, contemplation on from the fool to the hermit.
Yeah, and that happens in life, right? When we go
Mhm.
out, we go out on a event, you have to take that step, that leap, it makes us vulnerable. We have vulnerabilities when we make a leap, and
Mhm.
but we also only make our transformations by doing that,
Mhm.
and so you learn. That's how you learn and you grow, and then yeah, the hermit seems to be in that position where there's a whole bunch of things, all those other cards that we encounter, justice and relationships and all those things. But when we get to that point of the hermit, we have formed ourselves, but then also it's time to let it go too.
Mhm.
That every stage of the way and the embodiment of all those characters that you are from the start to that other place were characters and things that you needed to embody to accomplish those things. And once they're accomplished, you move to the next. And the hermit knows that. And
Mhm.
it's like if you have an endeavor and then you take it through to its completion, and then you're still in a position to go through another endeavor, you know that you have to cycle back around and sort of become the fool again in order to do it. It's a recreation. You can't do the same thing again. It
Mhm.
just doesn't fly, and everybody knows it. It's like a fundamental law. But then the
Mhm.
funny thing is that life is filled with repetitions that are clearly, you could totally define the same thing and say the complete opposite of what I just said, which is all creation is fundamentally the same. If you look at all of these cycles, they lay on top of each other as if are the same kind of code. And that's the codification that we're talking about when we do something like astrology or cards or anything like that. So yeah,
Mhm.
but if something is properly uh, an enigma, then you know that it resembles somewhat the truth, we can't, no, stuff's not linear. It's golden ratio, man.